All right, good evening, everyone. I'm sorry I'm starting a couple minutes late. Just want to make sure I had my ducks in a row. We don't often have joint sessions with our Economic Development Corporation, so to make sure we had our procedure in order. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to invite the Economic Development Corporation to open their session, then the City Council will open our session. We will then be in joint session, and we will move immediately to item number 3. We will deal with item number 3 and then go back and run through our agenda pretty much as listed. So first I'll let you guys open your meeting. Can you turn on the microphone? I'm sorry.
Okay, can we hear that?
Yes, sir.
All right, good evening. We'll call the Schertz Economic Development Corporation's joint meeting with City Council to order.
Very good, and we're going to have a call to order our joint session of the Schertz City Council and the Economic Development Corporation to order at this time, and we will actually, I believe we will open our regular session later on in the evening after we've concluded our work in the joint session. So at this time, let's go ahead and do this now, because we should start every meeting with our opening prayer and pledges. So if you all join me in standing, please.
If you bow your heads, Father God in heaven, we come to you asking right now for forgiveness of our sins, Father God, before you. We thank you, Father God, for the many blessings that you've placed in our lives, and we thank you for the leadership that you've given us, Father. Thank you, Father, in Jesus' name, for giving us the opportunity to serve one another. We ask that you would guide our minds, our thoughts, and our hearts, Father God. Let us be sharp, Father God, and let us continue to watch over the things that you've given us, Father God, and be good stewards. In Jesus' magnificent name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. So as I said, we're going to move immediately to item number 3 within the joint session, which is in regards to Resolution 17R31. We'll go ahead and read the caption. A resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing a program and expenditures as provided for in the Economic Development Performance Agreement between the City of Schertz Economic Development Corporation and Evestra Incorporated and other matters in connection therewith. Kyle, it's all yours, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Chairman, and SEDC Board of Directors. Appreciate the opportunity to come and to meet in joint session. Have the opportunity to present a project which has to be approved by the Economic Development Board and then by the City Council, and we will also include a public hearing which is required as part of the approval process. So a little bit of background. Over the last 6 months, we have been working to attract new businesses to our community through the creation of a small business grant, which opens up and allows the Economic Development Corporation to be to utilize its funds to help attract primary jobs to the city of Schertz. As part of the small business grant, the Economic Development Corporation sets aside about $500,000 that can be used by the board and by the city to be a little bit more aggressive to help us to accomplish some of our objectives in helping to diversify our community. And so we may approach deals a little bit differently than we have with other projects as we move forward. So that is the case with this project. So we've presented an agreement with Evestra, which is a company that was established in 2008. They are a pharmaceutical research and development company that is moving forward into the manufacturing phase of their progression, which is exciting. So as the company grows and expands, they look for larger space and also one that will accomplish the needs that it currently has as it's moving forward in the company's development as they get closer towards the commercialization of their product. So this is the facility that they are currently pursuing. They will lease the facility with an option to purchase the facility and operate and establish operations within the city of Schertz. Now, I lay out the overall investments that are outlined within the agreement. So during the 2017 calendar year, Avestra will create 6 jobs within the city of Schertz. These are jobs that are currently existing with the company. They will be full-time jobs that are involved in their headquarter operations, their manufacturing operations, and then also their quality control. Additionally, in 2018, they will bring on 4 additional employees and have a requirement to create $775,000 in annual wages that will be associated with those 10 employees. One of the things that we can see is that this creates an average of $77,500, which is significantly higher than our county average that we track for that area over about $41,000. So with this company, it raises the wages and brings in a new dynamic and a new type of company to the city of Schertz. Additionally, associated with the agreement is that they will be required to have what I'll say $2.6 million of cumulative taxable property, a little tongue-tied there, of which $1.9 million is new value to the city of Schertz. So we recognize that they are moving into an existing facility, and some of that value is currently on the city's tax roll. And so, 1.9 of that will be new value to the city of Schertz. And then during the 2019 to 2021 calendar years, they will add 6 additional employees and also new annual wages. Those additional employees will relocate their research and development operations to the Schertz facility. Again, adding a new adding diversity to the city of Schertz and our companies that we currently have here. Under the agreement, the Economic Development Corporation proposes to offer $200,000 as a small business grant. This is part of that overall $500,000 that is used to attract primary jobs to the city of Schertz. Are there any questions? With that is the presentation, the overview of the agreement.
Very good. And what we'll do then, as we normally do, is we'll move now to a public hearing. This is set for a public hearing. What I will do is I will open the public hearing. I'll ask if there's anyone that would like to address both the council and the corporation on this particular matter. If you do come forward, I would ask that you state your name and your address for the record so the city secretary can capture that. I think at the close of the public hearing, I'm going to invite the President and Chief Executive Officer of Avestra to come up and just say a few words. So after I close the public hearing, I'll invite you up, Zev. So at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing. And anyone that would like to come forward and address the council on this particular item and the corporation may do so at this time. I don't see any takers, which is quite all right. So at this time, if there's no one that wants to address the council, I'll close the public hearing, but I will invite Zev to come forward if you would like to, and just say a couple of words about your company and what it is that you all are doing. It was a pleasure visiting with you earlier. Can I get you to come to the microphone? And yeah.
I should have maybe look a little better. Okay.
And it should put you on the screen and records.
That's
and
fine. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
My name is Zev Schertz. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. I'm the president and CEO of Avestra Incorporated. We are now located at Texas Research Park of 211, and within 2.5 months, everything goes well, we will be a Schertz biopharmaceutical company. It's going to be a first, and hopefully of many others to come. Indeed. I will, as part of being in the role of leadership for Evestra at Schertz, I will also work with the mayor and Kyle to promote other such enterprises for Schertz. I have a rich history, which I won't go into. It will take hours. Background is Russian, Polish, Israeli, United States, PhD in organic chemistry from MIT, and then I decided to smell the roses in this beautiful country, which I love, and have two wonderful sons, both doctors, medical doctors. I don't know what else I can tell you, but I invite all of you to informally, Kyle has my phone, my email, if I can share whatever we do currently. The company has two major platforms in gynecology. So we're working on innovative unmet needs for women, but we also have oncology assets. We have 3 partnerships, international partnerships. We have a partnership in the US. So we have 4 major partnerships which fuel the revenues that we need to develop the assets. We have a major grant with the Gates Foundation, also in the area of promoting women's health in developing countries. Those are major unmet need in sub-Sahara and places like this. We were fortunate to get a grant from the NIH in the past, and also we are international. So we have 2 wholly owned subsidiaries, one in Germany, in Berlin, kind of responsible for the development, international drug development. And because of my roots, we also have a subsidiary in Warsaw, and that's dedicated for developing a drug for endometriosis and fibroids. So I'm pretty sure you haven't heard too many cases where an American company gets a grant from the European Union because of the quality of the innovation that the company has, and because we are trying to do something also good for a country like Poland. So with that, maybe I'll spare you the rest of my story. But I invite you, and I look forward to meeting some of you in the future, informally. Please come to visit us. So I'm going to move here in the middle of July, something like that, with my assistant. And then we will bring the manufacturing and the quality control people. We're going to have a little bit more than 6, but we want to be sort of careful in terms of the commitment, or call it, head counts, but we will have more than 6 this year. Okay. We're just hiring, right now as we speak, 1 additional person in quality control and 1 additional person manufacturing. So it's already, the numbers are going up. Okay, so with that, have a good evening, and thank you. I look forward being a native Schertz, employee.
Zev, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have been able to spend a little bit of time with you earlier, learn a little bit more about your business, and pharmaceutical manufacturing is new to the city of Schertz, but is a fantastic innovation, and to meet with a company that's not just profit-driven, but for the good of people driven as well. It's a great balance, and be a great addition and part of our family here in Schertz. So I'm very happy to have you. So I'm going to open it up for both the corporation and the council. I'm going to defer first to the corporation. Any questions that you all have for Kyle with regard to what's been put together? If not, then council, questions for Kyle? Mr. Edwards?
I just want to thank you for actually coming to Schertz to make your investment here. We really do appreciate that. So thank you so much. And for economic development, for what you guys have done, we appreciate you guys working so hard for us as well. Kyle, good job.
Anyone else? Then I will once again defer to the corporation. They have to vote on this and give their approval and assent first, and then we will follow.
Schertz EDC, you need a motion? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Anything else? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Very good.
100%.
In that case, I'm going to exercise a little privilege, and I'm going to make a motion from the chair that we approve Resolution 17R31.
Second.
Mr. Edwards caught my left ear first. My hearing loss is in this one, so I think I got it right. So I have a motion from the chair, a second from Mr. Edwards. Any other comments or questions from the council? If not, I'll call for a vote.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye. Aye.
Unanimous, 7 and no nays. So a unanimous vote, and the motion carries. Welcome. We're very pleased to have you here with us. And Economic Development Corporation and Kyle, great work. We put in our strategic plan years ago that this was a direction that we wanted to go, and to arrive is fantastic. So very good. All right, at this time, I'm going to move back to the beginning of our agenda. And the first item that we have on here is a workshop item. It's Schertz Economic Profile, and I believe Councilmember Davis asked that we provide this information. So Kyle and I guess Mr. James, you guys have the floor.
Tag team on these presentations.
So as Brian and I went through the agenda and the series of items, there's so many of them that are interrelated between everything, and so we are going to present them kind of all together. And one of the reasons of having us both do it, I represent the Economic Development Corporation, and Brian with the city, and covering both ends of the spectrum there, as the Economic Development Corporation provides funds for economic development through the EDC, and then the city provides funds for economic development through the general fund that we'll talk about and get into a little bit later. So one of the requests that we had was to get a snapshot of our local economy and looking at the different sectors. Now, one, because we're not a real large city that takes in a whole region, we pulled this economic profile from the jobs that are currently located within the city of Schertz. And so by that, we can see where people are employed and what sectors they make up. And so the largest sector takes into account the educational, those associated with the school district. Next to that, we pull in the food-related services that we see, the development along 3009, along Interstate 35, creates a lot of jobs. Next to that, the next sectors, you start to get into the product that we see throughout Tri-County and throughout our industrial parks that picks up wholesale trade. So think of Amazon in that area. Retail trade is going to pull in Walmart and H-E-B and other retailers throughout kind of that 35 corridor and down interstate or down 3009 and pick up some of those on FM 78. We also have a fairly strong cluster in manufacturing. Now, it's interesting that is larger than construction, in that a lot of communities you see construction sector quite a bit larger, which is a good thing for us, because we see that brings in a lot of diversity to our economy and a lot of great jobs, but also there's a lot of taxable value associated with that sector as well. As you get less than kind of 6%, each category gets a little bit smaller. One of the things that I will mention on this slide, economic development, this is something that we have focused on at the EDC board level quite a bit. And one of the things in setting up this small business fund and some of the other incentive programs allows us to be a little bit more strategic in diversifying our overall portfolio that we have within the city of Schertz. The next slide shows the inflow, outflow of jobs and workers within the city of Schertz. A couple of takeaways on this slide. First we see that within the city of Schertz, so on the circle we see 1,600. Those are residents that stay and work within the city of Schertz. The next number that really jumps out is we see there's a lot of jobs that people come from other cities and are employed in the city of Schertz. And then the largest number and a real telling character about our community is that majority of our residents are leaving the city of Schertz and are being employed elsewhere. And we can think about this as we think about our neighbors and the strong connection that we have with the military and other medical users and people working within the area. That takes up that other major category of people who are leaving. And one of the things just to notice is that there is this separation between residents and jobs that are produced in our community. Now that's a positive thing, and it can also be a negative thing, but something to watch. Some of those jobs we are able to bring to our community, not all of them, and we'd use as an example the military as a good example there. We don't have a military base within the city of Schertz.
And maybe the last thing I'll say to that as we talked about it is keep in mind what we often hear from folks, and a little bit that came out of the citizen survey that we conducted. You have a lot of folks who say Schertz is a really great place to live. I work in the area. I needed to decide where to live, and I wanted to pick Schertz and wanted to live there. And so again, not a bad thing necessarily that those numbers are different, because I think it's indicative of the fact that we have such a high quality of life here for residents is partly why. The last thing I'll say is certainly I think some of the reasons we hear why folks like living here, it's because they don't have some of the congestion and other things going on that may come with some of those other jobs and employment. So again, we have that high residential quality of life in part because we don't have some of the other things, traffic congestion, et cetera, associated with those employment centers. So again, I think as Kyle said, there can be good, there can be bad. It's making sure you understand why and where you want to be and what you may want to adjust to move forward.
So the last slide within this section is a look at our largest employers, or those that employ over 100 employees. And as you see from the chart, those that are shaded in the light orange are primary jobs. And so we start to see how that focus on primary jobs and starting to put a name with some of those companies that create those jobs within our community.
And that's a factor, Kyle, you talk about, that's a factor because primary jobs has a special allowances in state law for how some of the things you do.
Correct. So yeah, primary jobs, one of the reasons that we focus on that, at the Economic Development Corporation, the way that we are allowed to spend some of our money is associated with the attraction of these primary jobs into our community. Now, the philosophy and the theory behind that is that with the creation of new primary jobs to our community, it then brings new money into our city and into our region, so that then new people are going to move and relocate to our community, but then also we have more demand for those secondary jobs and other services that our residents need and also the employees of those businesses need, helping to further grow our local economy. So the next section that we wanted to go over was we had a request to do a comparison with our local incentives and compare that to other programs that are available at some of our neighboring cities. Now, before we go there, I wanted to highlight some of the things that the Economic Development Corporation has done in really setting up our policy that, up until this year, we've really kind of kept with the same policy and kind of moved it forward. I apologize, there's a timer on this that I can't figure out, so it moves on.
We might have snuck that in there.
And so those main focus that economic development has had, and I say economic development shared with the city through the economic development policies of the past, have been on growing our local tax base, bringing new money into our community through primary jobs, and then here recently we've changed and introduced so that our existing companies also have access to those incentives when they grow and when they expand and they add new taxable value to our community, just as those other companies do that we are also seeing to the community. And then there's also been this focus on helping to diversify the type of businesses that we have. We've seen a lot of warehouse and distribution that's come in, and the more that we can diversify. So the next item that really wants to come up is...
Fix it here, and you can talk over time. Perhaps tell a joke or something.
Perfect.
Instead of telling a joke, why don't we, there's a point that you probably have the data right on the top of your head or tip of your tongue, as it were. We have a well-blended tax base, a balance between our commercial and residential tax base. Do you happen to know what that ratio is right now, rough and tumble?
So we still are roughly 55-45.
55 residential to 45 commercial. Other way around, so 55 commercial to 45 residential.
And the switch is relatively recent.
Yeah, and so we've been working at that for decades. It was one of the things that was called out in the 1972 base plan, strategic plan that was done by the city council at that time under Mayor Richard. In 1972, and we talked about needing to have that balance. And so to get to a place where we have more taxes coming from the businesses that participate here in the city than we do from our residents, it takes the burden off of us, and it makes sure that we're in a diversified portfolio that allows us to maintain balance in the burden that we have as the residential taxpayers. And I hate to call out other cities, but there's a city to the south of us whose first letter of their city name is a K. They don't have that balance, and their tax rate is somewhere around 78 cents per $100 of valuation. That's 150% of what our tax rate is here, and one of the reasons that they're in that position is that lack of balance between commercial and residential tax base. So I just wanted to point that out and congratulate both you, Kyle, the work that you've done, the staff, and the Economic Development Corporation for getting us to this position. It's something that we identified literally in 1972 in the plan, and that were being discussed as early as 1966, that this was a need, and over the last 40, 50 years, we've gotten there, and I didn't realize it was already 55-45 on the commercial side. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think, one thing as you see now with the slide that it's up there that kept wanting to come up, part of the focus of economic development had been really growing that tax base. And to point to other communities around us, they may go after economic development projects for very different reasons than we do. They may say, I've got a lot of folks in my community that aren't employed or are underemployed, and we're trying to bring in jobs. Whereas, again, a lot of our focus has been really growing that tax base. Again, there's a focus on primary jobs, but it's less about that, I think, than the tax base.
The other thing that I would say is, as we're moving forward and what we see in the proposed policy is that in the past, we've really worked together with the City of Schertz and the Economic Development Corporation, working together in offering of incentives. And so, and a lot of that burden in the past has been borne by the city through the general fund. Economic Development has also participated, and there's also some participation that the Economic Development Corporation has done associated with other costs that we have changed over time to help really direct and to identify those funds so that we can use them for these focus areas that we've identified. And so we've pulled some of those items that we have been helping out of the general fund, been able to build up a reserve that was not possible before 5 years from now, which now allow us at the Economic Development Corporation side to now have those reserves so that our Economic Development Corporation can on their own, for the most part, stand up and promote and offer economic development incentives 100% in line with the state law and what's required and what's allowed there.
So So I think maybe a thing we want to touch on too, and again, just to reiterate, since we had the dilemma with the slide, is again, historically, the focus was on growing that tax base. And again, as the mayor asked for that percentage, I think that percentage flip is as a result of that focus. It's been primary jobs because, again, state law very clearly says this is what economic development can focus on. And then as we've moved over time, as we grow, as we change, as we need to adjust to changing times, one of the things we clearly want to focus on more that's part of the policy is retention of those existing businesses. So I've got an existing business. They're looking to expand. We want to make sure that that business, we have the ability for them to work with economic development and say, how can I incent you to stay here and grow your business with that expansion, as opposed to maybe looking for new space elsewhere or growing it elsewhere going forward. And then lastly, I think as we talked about in the example tonight came in, it's how do we diversify our business base? So as the mayor said, we want a diversity of our tax base so we're not relying all on residential, but we also don't want to put all our eggs in one basket from a commercial standpoint. If you look at what's happened in other communities, when auto manufacturing goes down, when the telecom industry up in Richardson goes down, they really suffer because they kind of had too much focus in one area. And so again, part of the goal now with this is to diversify that as we go forward and do some other things. And we'll let Ray come in and do the final fix. And maybe James can do it for us here real quick. Do it.
It's 53% is commercial property.
53. Very good. 53-47. That's still very healthy and in the right direction. Excellent.
And so the other thing is, one of the things we want to talk about tonight is making sure we understand all of the pots of money or all of the resources we can draw from. And as Kyle was saying, that we utilize those pots of money in a very thoughtful manner to really maximize the benefit we have of all of those pots of money. What we don't want to do is take a fund that has very limited use, and instead of using that on that limited use, we take a fund that's got very broad use and put it there, and so then we're left to go, well, what do I do with this money? I can't spend it on anything. And I think that's part of what Kyle talked about as well, as part of the changes in terms of EDC effectively funding these agreements that used to be funded by the city. So Amazon, for example.
Yeah, so as we shift incentives to the Economic Development Corporation, which has that specific targeted focus for primary jobs and bringing new money into our community, it then frees up money that in the past the city through the general fund was doing, so that that the city, who has more flexibility, is able to participate in some of these other programs. So an example of that would be some of these other items, as we see that we're hearing interest in for local flavor of some of the local businesses that we've heard over the last few weeks that have come in and wanted participation. Under the Economic Development Corporation, we're not able to provide incentive programs for them. However, the city and some programs that they have has more flexibility, which then opens up other opportunities. And so some of the things that we are hearing from the community and some of the things that have been out there are these local flavor items of things that add quality of life to our residents and add that unique charm and create more of a sense of place to the city of Schertz. Also, adding incubators and helping in other ways to promote entrepreneurism and bringing new businesses to the city. And then also, with a target to Main Street and those specific businesses in there and further creating opportunity. Those are some areas that we challenge with in our traditional economic development approach through the Economic Development Corporation and also in previous economic development policies for the whole city. So I'm going to try to go back. So as requested, I've created a chart that has the different programs that are used most by our neighboring cities, and then also where it says primary jobs, those are economic development corporation incentives, and then where it says general fund, those are city as a whole general funds. Now, one of the things that we've seen is that, some communities they have provided specific programs that we as staff would not be as comfortable in recommending to the Economic Development Board, and who has the responsibility of the programs that we set forth and the legality of them, and then also council the same way. And so, but one of the things that we notice here is that even with our proposed policy, we start to see some gaps in some areas that we haven't been able to identify a specific program and opportunity for us that we wanted to discuss. And really the major reason of having a joint EDC, City Council, Economic Development Corporation, and City Council meeting. So, as you see, with our policy, what we're proposing is that we have the economic development policy that was presented of the Schertz incentive policy, but we see the need for a separate policy, which then adds to the economic development policy in ways that the general fund would be able to contribute. Still doing it. So we've separated the two different policies and wanted to make it very clear that as far as staff, as we've gone forward, and Brian and I have discussed the different programs of what we're hearing from council and what we're hearing from the Economic Development Board, and really being able to create a vibrant city and vibrant community that we want, but also within the framework that is allowed by the different statutes, is very important to us. And so please note that we are proposing two separate policies be created. We've presented one of them that you have, that is the Schertz incentive policy. And then the second one we're loosely calling this local flavor, which opens us up to an area that we historically haven't operated in, but also to be very specific that we need to look and we need to be very careful as to what pots of money, using Brian's example, those programs are pulled from.
So I think maybe to touch on that from sort of the city perspective, to tag on to what Kyle had said, as we looked at these things that we had been hearing about folks saying we really ought to get involved in, and that again we've heard about microloans or very small loans to small businesses. We've heard about how do we incent those unique small businesses coming in. So that may be a restaurant, it may be a brew pub or a coffee shop or something like that. As we talked about those sort of things, as well as how do we do redevelopment in particular areas, we had the option of saying, do we want to roll that all into the EDC policy? And I think our recommendation is to not do that. That we feel like it's more appropriate for EDC to focus on their core mission, which really is what state law sets up the use of your funds for. So that board can do that, or the corporation can do that, and then we establish a separate policy for these other things. And we think that has a couple of advantages. One is there isn't confusion about which entity is dealing with what and how those funds can be used. The other is we're not sort of splitting our attention from one entity into two different areas, because often you deal with the most pressing things, the biggest project up front, and so we don't want to sort of do a disservice to some of those local quality of life things with regard to small businesses going forward. And then we also want them to be able to move at separate and distinct speeds. So if one program is up and going and really moving quick, we want it to do that. If we're having to spend a little more time on the ground with the other, we can do that. And so to be clear, we're recommending some modifications to the EDC policy that Kyle has laid out. Generally, that has to do with retention of those existing businesses that want to grow and expand, and then also diversifying our business community, so stick with that. And then we're saying create this separate policy for lack of a better term right now, we're calling it that local flavor policy, which is unique places to Schertz, unique areas to Schertz, and then small business sort of help and incentives that we've heard about that will handle a different way, and that we may very well likely handle with a different funding mechanism or different set of funds. And so to be clear, as EDC has said, we'll take on more responsibility for those core projects and funding those and not having it come out of the city. The city can then in turn free up those funds to use for some of these things that frankly we feel like EDC is precluded from. The last thing I'll say this is, while we don't want to be overly conservative and say, oh, we can't spend money on this, we can't spend money on that, to the fact that we're tying our hands with things, we also, to be really blunt, don't want to play too fast and loose with that. One is because we don't think it's in keeping with the city mantra that we have and what we lay out as our vision and our core values and things like that. But for frankly a pragmatic standpoint, it is very bad for a city and economic development corporation to get called out on spending funds inappropriately. That really can create a chilling effect, and that's a bad thing to wake up and read in the paper in the morning. And so we would rather say, let's find a clearly appropriate set of funds to use, as opposed to pushing the envelope, because while it may not come out on that small project, what we don't want to have happen is that as we're competing on a very big project, that other community looks and says, well, let me look and see how they spend their funds, raise that issue, and then causes doubt in the mind of that company we're competing for. So for that very pragmatic reason, we want to be very safe with how we use those funds to not run afoul of that and damage our reputation and hurt ourselves going forward. And so we think by looking at all of these changes that we're proposing, we have the ability to do some things that we've heard people asking for and do it in the appropriate manner with the appropriate group, if that makes sense. Go to your slide back, and so we talk about where we're proposing to do some things we haven't. So again, as you can see, there are a lot of areas like the general kind of things that we handle on a case-by-case basis that most communities do as a primary job effort. But then we also get some things such as small business that really not a lot of the benchmark cities are doing with the general fund. Some are. Again, we feel like we can do those things too, which is why you see proposed. We just wouldn't necessarily tap EDC funds to do that. We think there's a better way to do that for us going forward. And so what we're proposing with this separate policy is really look at entrepreneurship, how we grow those folks who say, I want to open a business. And council and P&Z has heard about that in the past. You may recall when we did the mini storage, 1103 self-storage, part of what they included in their zoning were those small office suites that they said, this is really kind of an incubator space. It's the person who needs a little bit of office, but they need a bunch of storage. And I think when we've been to ribbon cuttings and things, we saw that a lot. So there's some things we kind of do to help facilitate in those areas, but we can do more in those areas. The other thing we heard is small businesses. And again, it may not be the city doing it. What a lot of cities do, unlike Cibolo, is they partner with a nonprofit. They say there's a group of folks who this is their area of expertise. They're set apart a bit from the goings-on of the city to help make better decisions that we could look to provide seed funding for to start that off. But then again, as part of that, they need to make it sustainable and they need to recoup and have it going forward. So they're not kind of constantly coming back to the well of the city to do that with some partnership. And then some things we can do with existing businesses to help them grow and get through the process more smoothly. And then we can also target some geographic areas. We've talked a lot about Main Street. But again, we've also heard from folks down south saying, you know, I like being a little bit out in the country, but man, it's tough to drive to get this or to get that or to get a daycare or things like that going forward. So we think there's some areas we can do, but again, it's picking which is the appropriate fund. And again, we want to develop those properties, those policies, talk about those in details because, again, we've talked about before, how much risk do we have with these sorts of things? And that's a key factor. An item you have on the agenda later is the Main Street Committee to help give some direction to that effort going forward. So at this point, maybe we'll stop talking a minute and take questions to see if what we've said made sense and if we think we've hit the mark.
So let me first defer to the corporation and see if you guys have questions for staff and let you kick us off. Okay, very good. Council, Mr. Thompson.
Not so much a question, but a comment. I think the incentive policy is going to be excellent. I really appreciate the breakdown into the primary job and the local flavor, and very much looking to see how the local flavor develops. But one thing that you've almost glossed over that I think is going to have just as big of an impact is the assistance center. I can't tell you how many people we've had come into the chamber and have said, we want to start a business in Schertz, where do I go? And it seems like there's not a one-stop shop clearinghouse. To have that is going to be excellent. We had a lady come in today. She wants to start a bakery, but we're how, and so just reading about the assistance center, I don't want you to underestimate the impact of that. I think that's a crucial place to start. It's going to create an excellent, positive first impression on many people who want to look here.
Good. Heather. Mr. Davis?
For this new areas in the general fund, would you be proposing like the start of a new board or commission that would vet these things and make recommendations?
We likely would not. I think one of the things that I would say is part of the restrictions we have that we've talked about tonight that we focused on is where those funds come from. What we didn't talk about as much is what expertise we use. So again, we've got EDC staff that has some expertise. We may need to find out what's the appropriate way to sort of, if you will, pay for their time in terms of which fund it comes out of. And that's not necessarily different than we do with other staff positions that have a foot in the water department, for example, so can be paid for in part from the water fund, but then do other things and have to be paid from the general fund. So that's part of it. We do have some expertise on some different boards and commissions and city council. And so I'm not necessarily saying we need another board or commission to deal with it. But what I am saying is with some of these things, where we've looked into it and other communities have had success, particularly with microloans for small businesses. Again, we've heard people saying, I need the new pizza oven, but I don't have the money to buy it. If I could get it, then I can grow the business. What a lot of communities do is effectively turn those over to nonprofits to sort of remove it from that decision-making altogether because they don't want it to be an appointed board or commission or elected board or commission. It just tends to work better separately. So from our perspective at this point, we're not recommending that, but likely we would tap into EDC with questions that's a little outside their primary area just to take advantage of their knowledge they have in those areas in city council as well. So again, at this point, we're not recommending another board and commission. We are probably recommending, if you want to call it, outsourcing to some nonprofits and some partners that can do some of these things better than us.
Do we have any other supporting information for the areas that you're proposing that we begin to look at? Do we have, for the cities that do have that, do we have their programs or?
We do have their programs. We have information on what they use. And so what we anticipated, if council says we're in the right direction, is frankly get you to maybe give us a nod of, look, let's start with small business. Let's start with entrepreneurship. And then what you're going to see now that we're done through council orientation is likely every meeting we will say, all right, here's a background packet of information a week in advance on what other cities are doing, best practices, and then have a work session with council to hit it that way.
Yeah, so to be clear, and that's where, by separating these into two different policies, we have the Schertz incentive policy, which is typically our EDC policy that we have as the next item for approval. We would start and stay the course with that we have now, and then we would add a separate policy that, as Brian mentioned, we'd bring in these other, people with expertise in setting up these programs, or as we have studied and looked at other communities, they're almost always run by a separate nonprofit, separate entity. They're not run by the city or by the Economic Development Corporation.
So again, we think we'll pick a topic, we'll give you a background of here's what San Antonio does, Austin, New Braunfels, et cetera, and then start talking about it that way.
Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Crawford?
Kyle, how many cities within 200 miles of us do what y'all are proposing right now?
I couldn't answer that.
Yeah, I can't give a specific number. However, I will mention that, you know, as I go, I'm going to use this by separating them into these two separate policies. You know, one, we are unique in creating a Schertz Economic Development Corporation policy, and one of the reasons of doing that is that it clarifies and adds alignment between the City Council and the Economic Development Board for the use of the economic development funds. Now, there are other communities that do partner with local nonprofits to add some of these other programs, you know, and so as we went out and we polled a list, I mean, we were able to find some of our neighboring cities that have also partnered with these organizations. New Braunfels, as an example, has partnered with People Fund to provide these micro loans to New Braunfels businesses.
Go ahead, and before I talk myself to death.
So basically, we're doing something new.
So I think what Kyle was saying with regard to establishing some formal policies, even for EDC, is a different practice.
Okay.
I'll tell you a conversation I had with James real quick, if I may deviate a bit. You know, even when we talked to council about we needed a reserve fund policy, when we did that research, there are not a lot of communities with a clear reserve fund policy that are out there that said it, so we'll be on the leading edge. What, to your question is if we want to talk about which cities are doing small business assistance or microloans, we can give you that list in a particular area, which is, I think, what your first question went to.
Well, to the extent that that's exactly what we're proposing here, because I may be swimming upstream, I may be completely wrong, but we're proposing to carve out $500,000 from EDC funds. Is that a fair statement to start with?
So the economic development policy, or the Schertz incentive policy, would stand on its own, separate from the local flavor policy. So
Well, so
those funds would be in addition. They would not be paid for by the Economic Development Corporation.
To clarify, Councilman, you're referencing the small business element in the economic development?
that's what we just did on item
Yes, sir.
3.
So
Okay. This is the local flavor part that has nothing to do with that.
that's correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
And where are we going to get our rules to operate by? And who's going to be the approval authority on the money we use and how we get it paid back?
With regard to the local flavor policy?
With regard to the local flavor, I understand the EDC policy. The audience doesn't know this, but council, I don't know about EDC, probably had more meetings than we did. We had 2 meetings that were reasonably long and reasonably thorough about what we just approved, to understand all the vagaries of something that we haven't done much of in the past.
Yes, sir. So with regard to that, as we come forward with each element of that local flavor policy, so microloan, that's where council will approve the policy that establish who decides how those monies are spent. And likely that would be council, again, maybe saying, we're going to fund this nonprofit, we'll enter into an agreement with this organization to do that for us, and they will make the decision, and how much oversight would council keep. So council will make those decisions, but we will decide those on an area-by-area basis as we tackle that particular area of the local flavor policy.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So in short, with regard to the local flavor policy, that we have a number of go, no-go decisions in front of us. This council will have to set up those policies, understand what's being done in other communities. Some of those will tell us what we don't want to do, and it'll be an iterative exercise. It's going to take some time. Okay. Kessel?
Mayor, Council, one thing that may be helpful to begin thinking about is what number you might be comfortable with out of the general fund as a general parameter. If you're comfortable with $10,000, it's very different than $100,000, and so there's not a right or wrong number as much as there's you starting to think about what kind of an investment level you're looking at, and that may shape what we're able to do or what we want to do. We may want to focus everything into one area, or we may want to be even more diverse depending on that preference. Again, there's not a right or wrong answer. $50,000 is as good as 10 or 100, but we'll need to have that information as well going into the budget year.
I would think that we would definitely want to establish some clear goals for the program, as well as what does local flavor mean? How do we want that to look? How aggressive do we want to be over time? What resources do we have? And so setting that number is probably going to be late in the game. A lot of work to do in front. Okay. What else do we have before we go to item number 2?
That's really it. If there are no more questions, we can move to
Okay. Any other questions, or we'll move on to item number 2? All good. The hotel, we're listed on the workshop for hotel occupancy tax funds discussion. Did we already cover that?
I'll touch on it just briefly, and again, I think this is to give a bit of a background. One is, because I don't think we've done the hot funds presentation. I've done it with a few boards and commissions, but have not done it with the corporation. So I'll touch on that slightly, and then just tell council a few of the conversations we've had since we did the presentation going forward. But to remind everybody out there, the hotel occupancy tax fund, or hot tax as it's called, is essentially a portion of money that's a tax that's added on anytime anyone rents a hotel room in the city of Schertz. Now, if you look at your bill ever, that's 13%. The city gets 7% of that. The state of Texas gets 6%. So we don't get all the 13%, but we get just over half of that. And we can accumulate that year by year. So we estimated last year we would collect about $600,000 or so in hotel occupancy tax funds. So it's a big pot of money that we can grow. We actually only plan to spend a little bit less than half of that annually as well. And in part, that's because, as I mentioned before, and as I touched on earlier, we used to use it for a wide array of things. As we, again, looked more closely at that, we kind of came to the conclusion we don't have a comfort level spending it on some of the things that we were spending it on, so we've pulled back and funded those through the general fund. So right now, we collect more than we spend, and that created a bit of a decision point for us. But to make sure everyone's clear on how we can expend it, it's really a two-part test. The first test is you either have to use it to drive tourism, or you have to promote the hotel and convention industry. So the first test is, are you driving tourism, or are you promoting the hotel or convention center industry? And if you can say yes to that, which you have to be able to say yes to those questions, then there are a series of 9 different areas that you have to meet that second test, and I've got to read those off because I don't have them memorized. But again, it can be funding for the establishment or operation of a visitor center or convention center, which we do with the visitor center, administrative cost for convention registration, advertising to attract a local tourist. We've talked about the ads people see in Texas Highways magazine. Likely those are funded through a hotel occupancy tax for some of those small communities. Expenditures to promote the arts, so our big festivals, events, things like that. But again, we have to be able to say it's going to drive those overnight stays at the hotel, not just for our local residents. Historic preservation, we've done some things there. Sporting events, we have done some things there with BVYA and CISA's tournaments. It's also to upgrade sports facilities that are going to be used for tournaments, transportation system for tourists, and signage directing tourists. And so because of that, a couple things we talked about before is that we feel like we've not done as good a job really bringing in those key stakeholders. So again, what we're recommending is that probably twice a year we sit down with the hoteliers and say, what is it we could be doing, or how could we be using these funds to drive more business your way, but then also to understand where are they seeing increased stays based on events we're funding. So one of the other things we're recommending is that a couple times a year we talk to those sports organizations, BVYA, CISA, et cetera, to say, how can we do this? It was interesting. I happened to do a presentation at the library board on the HOT presentation I did. One of the board members said, I didn't know that. My kid plays soccer. I'm going to have CISA call you. And then they contacted. The discussion was to support that going forward. But again, some of the challenges as we've researched and talked to those folks, we learned is large sports tournament often require you to book or block out a certain number of rooms. Our hoteliers may not be willing to do that because are they sure they're going to get them booked? They have the regular stays for business, things like that. So by having this communication, we think we can do a better job. The other thing we need to decide is, are we trying to save up from those funds to do a big project, if you will? Are we trying to save up those funds to maybe utilize with city funds or some other source for a sports complex or an expansion to a sports complex going forward? And so what we recommend that we do is, given the discussion we just had about using the appropriate pot of money to fund things, that we develop the policy on hot funds while we're developing the local flavor policy that we can talk about not only what do we want to accomplish, how do we want to accomplish it, but we can have those clear discussions. How do we fund it? What's the opportunity cost, and what's the best source of funds going forward? But we think we can start having those meetings with the stakeholders, the sports group, the hoteliers now, to get better communication, better coordination, and then develop the policy on the use of those funds while we move forward on some of those other fund projects. And that's my presentation, so I'll answer any questions.
Okay, very good. Questions from council? Okay, we'll go ahead and move to item number 2 then, which is a discussion item, which is Resolution 17R30, a resolution by the City Council of City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing economic development incentive policy, providing an effective date and other matters in connection therewith. And once again, I will let Kyle introduce this one, then defer to the corporation for them to consider, discuss, ask questions, vote first, and then we'll follow with the council.
So this is an item that, Council, you've already seen as the workshop. And remember, going back one slide, so this is the incentive policy that we've provided. So the Economic Development Corporation, we have seen it multiple times. We've gone back. Last time we brought it to the council, there was a recommendation that we decrease the amount of time that a business be in Schertz to qualify as an existing Schertz business. We took that item to our board, who recommended that be put in place, and so they approved that, and now we're bringing it back. A couple of things to highlight really quickly, as Councilman Thompson said. As we kind of follow the arrows through this policy, we want to capture any interested person who wants to start a business, or anybody who has a business and is relocating to, is interested in moving their business to Schertz. We want to capture them with that assistance center and put the information that they need to start a business in Schertz, get it through our city process, obtain a certificate of occupancy, and start operations. Also, there are a couple of tax exemptions that the city has already passed that we want to make sure that they're aware of, that make us more competitive over other communities. From there will be other projects that fall through that are interested in an incentive. And so as I've shown here, majority of the areas go over towards the EDC, who will bear the burden of that incentive program. Under the company direct incentives, the EDC has created specific categories for existing Schertz businesses, small businesses, large impact businesses that will all receive funds, would qualify for incentives through the Economic Development Corporation, that we could then, through this voluntary policy, go out, use, and attract and bring companies into our community, giving them a clear answer of, the alignment that we have between council and the EDC board, to help minimize questions, that is so effective in working with companies and having them relocate here. We also highlight that of the allowable projects, the Economic Development Corporation wants to focus on infrastructure. We believe that this is a key thing that will help spur economic development in the city of Schertz. So one of the things that we say is, if you were to put a restaurant in Schertz, there are very few places that you could even go out and acquire a parcel that is development ready. We have infrastructure needs that we need to put in place, in the Economic Development Corporation. So we have identified that as an area that we would highlight and want to reserve those funds that we could use. And then there is a list of other projects that we would still keep as a tool, so to speak. On the other side, under the current Schertz incentive policy, so this is not the second proposed one, there are two areas that the Economic Development Corporation is recommending that the City Council participate at this time. The first one is extra large impact projects that generate over $100 million in taxable property. So we have a couple that are on the books now. Amazon and Caterpillar would fall into this. And so if we had a project that was over that, the Economic Development Corporation would want to look to the City Council, to make sure that we had a proposal of an incentive that was as competitive as we needed to be. The other one is a gross sales and use tax program that would allow the city, as we push forward on bringing in the next regional retail center, those anchors would generate over $35 million in taxable property. Economic Development Corporation, because of our rules, is not able to provide those type of incentives, and so we wanted to create that as an opportunity. Ultimately, the end purpose of this policy is bringing, going back to those initial lists, it's bringing new taxable value into the community on a large scale, and it's opening up opportunities then for other businesses to go into those parks. And so that is the policy that we have presented to you. Now, what is required is the approval of that policy for the 380, the city's portion. So everything under the city's side, that is what council would be approving. So the Economic Development Corporation has already voted on this one and turned it over to the city council for approval.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, procedurally, this has already been voted on by the corporation, already been approved, so the only action that we have this evening is for the council to approve or disapprove Resolution 17R30.
Correct.
Okay, very good. So if it's already been approved by the corporation, then council questions for Kyle.
Just one question.
Yes, Mr. Gutierrez.
Any idea what the vote was in favor of it? Was it unanimous?
Yes, it was unanimous.
Yes, we were unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? In that case, is there a motion to approve 17R30?
So move.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Thompson, a second from Dr. Kaiser. Any other comments or questions from council? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
7 ayes and no nays, the motion carries. That does complete, with the exception of the roll call vote confirmation, which we'll turn over to the city secretary to do. That'll complete the first portion of our evening, which was the joint session between the corporation and the council. So at this time, Mrs. Dennis, if you would, the roll call vote confirmation for both bodies.
Yes, sir. For item number 3, resolution number 17R31, I'm going to do the EDC first. Motion was made by Board Member Chain, seconded by Board Member Macaluso. Chair Brown, Board Member 2, Richard, Macaluso, Chain, and Howe voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 3 on council, resolution number 17R31. Motion was made by Mayor Carpenter, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Edwards. Mayor Pro Tem Edwards, council members Davis, Gutierrez, Larson, Thompson, Kaiser, Crawford voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 2, council, resolution number 17R30. Motion was made by Councilmember Thompson, seconded by Councilmember Kaiser. Mayor Pro Tem Edwards, council members Davis, Gutierrez, Larson, Thompson, Kaiser, Crawford voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed.
Very good, thank you, ma'am. At this time, it is time to adjourn the joint workshop meeting. So I'll defer first to the corporation to adjourn their meeting, then I'll adjourn our meeting, then immediately we'll reconvene in our regular session. But I do want to say thank you to all the members of the corporation for the work that you do, the freedoms that you allow this council to have with the businesses that you help bring here, the culmination of the planning that was done from, as I'm going back and researching and reading, from 1966 to 1972 is largely happened over the last 10, 20 years, and it's the consistent work from the corporation that's gotten us there, and consistent wins and big wins. So I just want to say thank you very much for the work that you do, the volunteering that you do. It's critical to the success of our city. So with that, Tim, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Move to adjourn.
We have a second. All in favor? Aye. You were unanimous. The Schertz Economic Development Corporation as adjourned.
Very good. If there's nothing else from staff or from council with regard to the joint session, then we stand adjourned. All right. Thank you once again, members of the corporation. So at this time, we'll call to order our regular session of the Schertz City Council for May 2nd, 2017. And we've already had the opening prayer and pledges of allegiance to the flags of the United States and the state of Texas. We have several things on the agenda this evening as to proclamations, new employee recognition, city events and announcements, and hearing of residents, and just a couple of business items. So I will start out with, I tell you what I'd like to do, if I may. We've got just a couple of folks that have signed up, and I know that a couple are younger and probably have school tomorrow. So why don't I'm going to go to hearing of residents if no one has any objections. And I'll start out with Maggie Titterington, who signed up first.
Good evening, Council. I will keep it brief. Thank you for Mayor Carpenter for attending the whirlwind ribbon cutting of two separate entities the same day, both having to do with real estate. Judy Goldick on Main Street, one of the very first ones to utilize the infrastructure grant for Main Street. Lovely building that she refurbished, but thank you very much. It meant a lot to her that you were out there. And what I would like to do is I'm going to tell you a very quick story here and totally embarrass somebody over there. But as you all know, we did a throwdown on metal collecting for Fiesta. And we were in the midst of this campaign, your city secretary and I, when she had gone on Facebook and saw that a 5-year-old little girl and her mom got their medals stolen out of their knapsack at Alamo Heights night. I mean, they had about 150 medals each on their sashes, and it was the start of a family tradition where the mother was trying to teach the daughter about how each medal meant something and the effort put into it. Well, it really touched Brenda's heart, and so she immediately set out to get in contact with this family. And she finally got a hold of the mother through messaging, and the aunt came and got the medals because the little girl was in school. So if I can switch this, Ray, you said you were going to help me not look stupid. Okay. So anyways, let me get this going here. Hopefully I have sound. Is there sound, Ray?
So silly.
Ray.
Aren't those beautiful?
What she's doing, this is the little girl, and this is her medals, and the little girl is so excited. She is looking, and she's like, oh, this one's so pretty, this one's so nice, and she was just totally ecstatic over receiving these. I mean, it's longer than she is.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, come on, Ray. Sound would be so good.
Wait, I haven't seen this one.
Well, stand up. Let me see what it looks like with you.
It's all the way up.
Oh.
Anyways, yeah, she stood up
Beautiful.
and
Look up at the camera.
and Ray, sound, is it okay? So this is
Brenda, 40
it's still not there.
medals.
It's on our chamber site. The little girl just said, "Thank you so much, Miss Brenda, and happy Fiesta to everybody." So I just wanted to let everybody know that you have somebody here working for the city with a heart of gold, and I think that kind of encapsulates what we always feel that our city is about, and that's caring for other people, even if they don't live here and they're in San Antonio. So, Brenda, thank you.
That's well done. That's well done in the true spirit of Fiesta. Well done. Excellent. All right, next on my list, C.C. Myers. Come on up. Good evening.
Hello, my name is C.C. Myers. I'm a leadership student from Kingdom of Soul.
Will you pull that microphone down just a little bit? There you go. Perfect. That's going to be ideal.
Today, I'm going to talk about the events from April and May. One event from May, but the rest. On the 1st of April, we had a Rampage game. We did a demo, and it was a really good success. On the 13th, we had an Easter egg event, and that was a really good turnout. On the 28th, we had the Great Kickathon. It's a privilege to introduce these kids. First is Isabella Kamahako with 321 kicks.
Wow.
And this is for Tigers. For beginner dragons is Nicholas Cross Irons with 312 kicks. For intermediate dragons is Dominic Bailey with 325 kicks. And for advanced dragons is Miss Sarah Wargo with 333 kicks, who could not attend because she had a band concert. Finally, we are having a award ceremony on the 5th, and it's a privilege to invite you to come to our Christ School at 5:30 p.m., please.
Very good. That's on the 5th at 5:30? Okay.
Thank you for letting me come out.
Well, thank you for coming and speaking before us. So for all four of you, first of all, if I tried to kick something 300 times, I would be cramped and in a lot of pain. Secondly, it takes a lot to come up and stand at a podium in a room full of people and in front of a city council up on a dais like we're a principal or something. The art that you are studying, if I'm not mistaken, is Taekwondo. Is that correct? No, it is not. Okay. In any case, I'll bet that you have tenets for your art, and I'll bet that one of those tenets is probably having an indomitable spirit. It is reflective of what you learn in studying a martial art, that you have that courage and that you show it here by being able to stand up in front of this body, in front of all these people, speak and talk about what you've been doing. So congratulations to you, and thank you for coming and visiting with us, and on the 5th at 5:30. Noted. All right, very well done. Thank you. And then Brian Poston. Hope I said that correctly.
He said he didn't need to speak.
Okay. All right, very good. Well, that's all that I have then under hearing of residents. So I will then go back to well, I'm all over the place now. So proclamations. We have 4 proclamations this evening. I'm going to bring the 4 proclamations down with me to the podium, and I'll read them down there, and there'll be different folks that will come up and join me as we read those. So just a moment, I'll be down. All right, as I said, I have 4 of these this evening, and the first one, no, I'm going to take these out of order, and I'm going to do them this way. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to read a proclamation about Better Hearing and Speech Month. So are you joining me for this one? Is this... All right, so... Before I read this one, sorry, sometimes I have to do this. There was a young man that I grew up around when I was in Memphis, Tennessee, and he was born hearing, and around age 3 had to have a treatment for an affliction that, if I recall correctly, the treatment either would cure the disease with no side effects, or would cure the disease and cause him to lose his hearing in both kidneys. His was the one where he lost his hearing in both kidneys. He's still with us today. He is a very courageous man of 38 years, and I didn't know much about folks that either had hearing loss or could not hear, but for growing up around this young man. And his name is Josh. I won't say his last name because he'd probably get mad at me. But this is something that's close to my heart because of my friendship with him and the things that he went through and his courageousness. So I'll read this. It says, whereas hearing loss is one of the most common medical conditions in adults and children, currently affecting more than 36 million Americans. And although commonly associated with the aging process, more than half of the hearing impaired persons in the U.S. are under the age of 65. With the increased use of personal music players and earbuds, the number of people experiencing hearing loss at a younger age is growing. I need to get a copy of this to take to my teenager when we're finished. Now more than ever, proper hearing education and early detection of hearing loss is essential. Whereas we're pleased to join with all citizens of Schertz in celebrating May as Better Hearing and Speech Month. Due to her tireless work, we salute audiologist Dr. Fallon Doss and her staff at Doss Audiology and Hearing Center for striving to bring exemplary hearing health care to our community and those individuals who are affected by hearing loss. By performing diagnostic hearing evaluations, Doss Audiology is able to detect the condition of hearing loss in its early or onset stages and treat individuals appropriately. Their concerns and dedication for hearing restoration as well as hearing conversation make Dr. Doss and her team a beneficial staple to the city of Schertz and surrounding areas. And whereas during this annual observance, we should focus our attention on the needs of our citizens who have some form of hearing, speech, or language impairment to ensure everyone has access to audiology and speech language pathology treatment that will help them lead full and productive lives. Now, therefore, I, Michael Carpenter, Mayor of the City of Schertz, do hereby declare May 2017 as Better Hearing and Speech Month, and hereby give additional support to the efforts of all people working in the audio and hearing profession. So, would you like to say anything? Like the microphone for just a moment?
Sure. As the proclamation mentioned, hearing loss is a very common health condition, one of the most common in the United States as well as the world, and that's why almost 4 years ago, I was so pleased to be the first hearing healthcare provider in Schertz. And so I take that responsibility very seriously, and I'm so pleased that Mayor Carpenter and the city would recognize May as Better Hearing and Speech Month. So we will continue to serve the people of Schertz, bringing quality hearing health care and hearing education to all of our citizens. So thank you so much.
She's going to make us take a picture with her, so we're going to step out in front. The next one is about Lupus Awareness Month. And someone join it, please. How you doing? So I'll make a comment about this one, too. You know, lupus is an interesting and challenging disease that, and you just correct me if I misstate myself, it's hard to diagnose, difficult to treat, and manifests differently in different people, and it's really daunting and can have a significant and difficult impact on people's lives, and because it's so elusive and so different for each and manifests differently in each individual, it's not something that we have a simple cure for at all. So let me read this, if I may, and get this going. So Lupus Awareness Month of May of 2017. It says, whereas an estimated 1.5 million Americans suffer from lupus, the chronic inflammatory autoimmune disease that can affect various parts of the body, especially the skin, joints, blood, and kidneys. And whereas lupus can be difficult to diagnose because its symptoms are similar to those of so many other illnesses, and major gaps exist in understanding the causes and consequences. And whereas the Lupus Foundation of America, Lone Star chapter, is part of a national force devoted to solving the cruel mystery of lupus while providing caring support to those who suffer from its brutal impact. And whereas the chapter rallied the City of Schertz community to wear the color purple and further unify support for those living with the disease. And whereas awareness is vital in raising funds for research and for those affected by lupus, and it is our responsibility as a community to advocate on their behalf and further encourage educational programs so everyone affected by lupus can have an improved quality of life. Therefore, I, Michael Carpenter, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the City of Schertz, do hereby proclaim May 19, 2017 as Put on Purple Day throughout the City of Schertz, and urge all citizens to support the cause of raising awareness of lupus so we can have a world with no lupus. Anything you'd like to say? Please.
Hi, my name's Lorenzo Hall. I'm from San Antonio. I live down the road in Converse, though. Lupus, I actually have lupus myself. I was diagnosed when I was 19, a sophomore in college. And I've been working with the city of San Antonio and arts and culture, and we put together a documentary on lupus. And would I be able to show the teaser? there's any way.
We have that?
So pull it up. No teaser. We could. If you never reach your breaking point, you'll never know how much you can take. What the documentary covers is basically how, I guess we can do a little voiceover work, I guess. I was diagnosed, and what the trailer's showing is lupus affects 1.5 people in America. This is the lupus walk. That's me. I'm a dancer, and the challenges of being a professional dancer with lupus is because lupus is such a rare, but sooner or later, the man who wins is the man who makes it. The joints and everything being to do with your body, being a dancer.
Lorenzo approached our organization and said, I have lupus, this is where I'm at, and how can I help? As a lupus patient himself, he wants to be able to share his kind of vision and help increase the awareness of what lupus is.
Texas, and that's basically what the documentary is about. It's sponsored by the city of San Antonio.
If you're trying to pursue your dreams and you have any obstacle in your way, whether it's a health obstacle or something that's internal, where you're
on Put on Purple Day, Channel 20, Public Access TV, or online. And yeah, I'm just super excited for Put on Purple Day and Lupus Awareness Month.
I think now we have to play it. Let's do.
If you never reach your breaking point, you'll never know how much you can take. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man. But sooner or later, the man who wins is the man who thinks he can.
Lorenzo approached our organization and said, I have lupus, this is where I'm at, and how can I help? As a lupus patient himself, he wants to be able to share his kind of vision and help increase the awareness of what lupus is.
if you're trying to pursue your dreams and you have any obstacle in your way, whether it's a health obstacle or something that's internal where you're telling yourself you can't do it, you always have to find a yes in every situation. So remember, please find a yes out of any situation, because that no is not going to work for you moving forward in the future.
All right, I also have, in the month of May, Building Safety Month. And I'm going to read a portion of this one because it's actually quite long and the print is quite small. I'll handle it. Thanks for the offer of the glasses, though. I appreciate it. It says, whereas our city of Schertz is continuing our efforts to address the critical issues of safety, energy efficiency, water conservation, and resilience in the built environment that affects our citizens, both in everyday life and in times of natural disaster, give us confidence that our structures are safe and sound, and whereas our confidence is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, laborers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians, dedicated members of the International Code Council, use a governmental consensus process that brings together local, state, and federal officials with expertise in the built environment to implement the highest quality codes to protect Americans in the buildings where we live, learn, work, worship, and play. And whereas our nation benefits economically and technologically from using the international codes that are developed by a national voluntary consensus codes and standards developing organization, our government is able to avoid the high cost and complexity of developing and maintaining these codes, which are the most widely adopted building safety and fire prevention codes in the nation. These modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from natural disasters. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown guardians of public safety, our local code officials, who assure us of safe, efficient, livable buildings. And whereas code officials, partners in community safety and economic growth, the theme for Building Safety Month 2017 encourages all Americans to raise awareness of the importance of building safe and resilient construction, fire prevention, disaster mitigation, and new technologies in the construction industry. Building Safety Month 2017 encourages appropriate steps everyone can take to ensure the places where we live, learn, work, worship, and play are safe, and recognizes that countless lives have been saved due to the implementation of safety codes by local and state agencies. And whereas each year, in observance of Building Safety Month, we need to consider projects to improve building safety and sustainability at home and the community, to acknowledge the essential service provided to us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, I, Michael Carpenter, of the city of, they've worded these differently, of the city of Schertz of the state of Texas, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2017 as Building Safety Month. Accordingly, I encourage our citizens to join with their communities in participation in Building Safety Month activities. So either one of you want to share a quick comment?
I do.
Okay, please do.
And it will be very quick. So just wanted to talk just a moment about, you said a mouthful there, but quickly wanted to talk about the programs that we're promoting for awareness. One of the things that we're doing new this year is we've partnered with Lowe's Home Improvement to have Ask an Inspector week, every Friday in May. We'll have an inspector on site at Lowe's asking questions for folks from 10 to 1. Also, our contractors meeting this month will be geared towards building safety. And then we work with public affairs to have a blast go out every week that kind of, they have themes for each week to have a blast go out to help educate folks on building safety. But thank you.
All right, and I have one more. And this is Economic Development Week. Where'd Kyle go? I mean, this is like on him. We'll have our Economic Development Corporation join me here as well. All right, I'll go ahead and start reading this one. I already made comments about it earlier, about how important it is to the city, but there's a little more in here about that. And it reads, whereas economic developers promote economic well-being and quality of life for their communities by creating and retaining jobs that facilitate growth, support workforce development, enhance wealth, and provide a stable tax base. And whereas the city of Schertz has a rich history of mayors, city councils, boards, and commissions, city staff, chambers of commerce, public-private partners, and residents who work together to promote economic development. And whereas on August 9th, 1997, the city of Schertz held a vote where Schertz residents voted to establish the City of Schertz Economic Development Corporation, or SEDC, and collect 0.5% of sales and use tax in accordance with the provisions of the Development Corporation Act of 1979. And whereas the City of Schertz and the SEDC work in unity to grow our local economy through the attraction and retention of primary jobs, supporting career training, and through the attraction of new capital investment throughout our city. And whereas over the past 20 years, the City of Schertz and the SEDC have partnered to bring about multiple projects that have benefited Schertz residents by leveraging incentive tools such as the construction of infrastructure, tax abatements, rebates, grants, and loans. And whereas the economic development efforts by this community have helped both small and large companies make significant capital investments within our city and create jobs for our residents. Therefore, I, Michael Carpenter, serving as the mayor, and the City of Schertz City Council hereby proclaim the week of May 8th to 13th, 2017 as Economic Development Week and reaffirm this city's support and commitment to seeking out opportunities to further our economic development by investing into our local economy. Let's celebrate and remind individuals of the importance of this community celebration, which supports, expands, and improves career opportunities and improves our quality of life. So I'm going to turn the mic over here in just a second to Kyle. After again, a little bit of brief commentary, a little color commentary. The day I was first elected mayor was the day that we there was a meeting that occurred at the county in the morning with the school district, then with the Economic Development Corporation at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Election Day here in these chambers for the council to approve the deal that brought Amazon here. That was pretty much a wild whirlwind day. It was on Election Day, and yet we had business we had to attend to here. It was a great win, and one of many that have been brought forth by volunteers, people who give their time, these folks right here, to work, and I mean work, for the Economic Development Corporation to make what happens happen. So first of all, thank you all again for doing what you do. I really appreciate it.
So wanted to jump on with the National Economic Development Week and start to bring recognition to the city of Schertz and really to the whole community as economic development is a community game as it involves everybody. I mean, we should have city staff up here who's involved. We have our boards and commissions, which we are very appreciative to. We have the chamber and our city council who are very much involved in putting the deals together to attract new investment to our community and also jobs for our residents that we need. Wanted to bring something that we've been using with Schertz businesses over the last little while. I know a lot of you have seen this sticker, which has really become a symbol of the city of Schertz, and it's a source of pride for Schertz residents. The sticker has evolved over the years, and to its current form as we have right now, I've seen them change, have different symbols. I've even seen them with the city manager's face on them, so they've changed. As part of our business retention plan that Jennifer Colby has rolled out, we wanted to make this connection of economic development and thank the businesses that have created the job for our residents and really support our community and offset our tax base through the Schertz investment pin. And we have one for all of council that the board will give to council, and then I have one for you, Maggie. The Schertz investment pin is a symbol of the company's investment into our community. Very grateful for what they do in promoting and bringing economic development into our community. Thank you.
At your own risk.
Yeah, we have to move that way, actually. We'll have to get out from behind. All right, a couple of new employee recognitions this evening. So we'll go ahead and start off first with EMS. Oh, thank you. I forgot to put that back where I found it. My mother would be disappointed.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We recently hired 5 wonderful people to be part of our Schertz EMS team. It's part of a new thing that we're going to try out and see how it works. And I think so far we're doing really great with this group. First up, we have Domingo Guerrero. He was born and raised in San Antonio. He's currently employed as a surgical technologist at San Antonio Orthopedic Surgery Group. He also works part-time for the City of Kirby Fire Department. He's a 2002 graduate of St. Mary's University and attended graduate school at the University of Texas at Austin. He finished his EMT training at Bulverde Spring Branch, and he's married to his wife, Guadalupe Guerrero, and they're celebrating 30 years of marriage in February.
All right.
He was also a founding member for the San Antonio Fire Museum and is active member for the Knights of Columbus.
All right, well, welcome. Glad to have you with us first and foremost. And for all new employees, I offer a chance at the microphone. It is not required, but it is offered.
Well, thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, on behalf of my wife and I, we'd like to thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I'd like to thank the EMS department. They've done a fantastic job of welcoming us aboard. We look forward to a very long, very successful career in serving the city of Schertz.
Fantastic. Welcome. Glad to have you with us. All right.
Next, we have Angel Carpenter. She's 20 years young, and she's from a small town south of Dallas. She recently finished her EMT certification here at San Antonio College and is fixing to begin her paramedic degree at San Antonio College as well. She's had a great interest in emergency management or emergency medicine and would love to be a flight medic or an ER physician one day. She currently works also at HEB, but hopefully we're going to steal more of her time.
Very good. Well, welcome. Glad to have you with us. And again, opportunity, double points for the last name.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. I'm so honored and thankful to have this opportunity.
Wonderful. Very happy to have you with us. Thank you.
Next is Ryan Taylor. Where is he? There he is. Ryan is a former police officer. He also is a volunteer at Marion Fire Department for us. So we brought him over to our side to work part-time with us. He also works at Wilson County ESD number 3 for their EMS department. He's working on getting his arson investigator certification. He's married, has no kids, just dogs is what he keeps telling me. And he was born and raised in New Braunfels, but currently lives in Marion.
Very cool. Welcome.
Like everybody else, thank you very much for this opportunity. We're really excited to get started.
Awesome. Thrilled to have you with us. Good stuff.
Next, we have Dylan Ott. He was born and raised in New Braunfels. He is a very busy person with school. He graduated from high school in 2011. He attended St. Mary's University in San Antonio, getting his bachelor's degree of arts in biology. He also has been working on his Master of Public Health degree at the UT School of Public Health and is pursuing a degree in epidemiology and is studying post-traumatic stress disorder in EMS and first responders. So he's very busy in school. He attended our Schertz EMS EMT Basic course and was a graduate for us, and he's decided to come back and work for us now.
Well, very good. Welcome.
I deeply appreciate the opportunity, and I really look forward to working here. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us. Good stuff.
And last but certainly not least, we have Frankie Trufilio. Frankie began his career in the information technology industry in 1994. He worked his way from a shipping and receiving clerk in Houston to opening a new branch as the branch manager overseeing sales and operation in North Texas Territory while continuing school. Through a business acquisition, Frankie assisted in closing his organization, inherited an alarm monitoring central station. The exposure to life safety and crisis management eventually led him back to Houston, where Frankie was hired as the first crisis information management system engineer for the city of Houston. Under the Office of Emergency Management and funded through the DHS Urban Area Security Initiative, Frankie developed a regional crisis information system in 3 multi-agency communities while serving as the co-chair for 2. Frankie's passion in crisis management and ability to build regional systems paved a way to STRAC in 2010, where he furthered his education in emergency management, critical information systems, and incident command system, and emergency medicine. Frankie proudly finished second in his EMT class at Schertz EMS in 2014 and accepted a PRN position in the ER at GRMC in Seguin on his free time. Frankie is lucky to be married to Amy Trufilio and proud to be the father of Isabella, who is 10, Frankie, who is 8, and Vincent, who is 7. He is currently the manager of communications and business relations at STRAC and excited to be one of the first 5 EMTs hired at the great city of Schertz.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Welcome.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. I echo my colleagues here. It's really a pleasure. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Listen, thank all of you for joining the team. Appreciate it. Very good. Thanks for being patient with us, too, while we went through all of our business tonight. All right, next up, Finance. Mr. Walters.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Chad Garcia as our new Assistant Finance Director. Mr. Garcia comes from us after 15 years as a civilian in the United States Air Force, where he was a budget and financial analyst. He was last at Kelly Air Force Base, where he managed over 204 locations worldwide, disposing of hazardous waste or managing hazardous waste. Before that, he was serving as a police officer in Balcones Heights, so he is not entirely new to city government and management. He actually has a very extensive scholastic background as well, where he has an undergraduate degree in accounting from the University of Texas in San Antonio and a dual MBA from Wright State University with concentrations in finance and marketing. He, in addition to all of his finance and analyst work, he actually teaches MBA courses in finance and accounting at Webster University and undergraduate courses in finance management, economics, and accounting at Park University. And we let him still do that after work as well. So he is still continuing as a professor, his teaching career as well. In addition to all that background, he really encourages people to pursue and better their lives through education opportunities. He has a wife and 3 kids and a love of Subarus, but that may be mixed up with his wife who sells them. So, and they always say that you should hire on and surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, and in this case, undoubtedly that is so.
Very nice. Well, welcome, first of all. Glad to have you with us. And I don't, Mr. Walters didn't bring it forward as much as perhaps, but there's probably somewhere in the job description it says other duties as assigned, beware. But anything you'd like to share with us this evening?
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here at the city. It's been great. I think they said the end of week 1 would be an obstacle, and now we're on week 3.
There you go.
So as time goes by, I can just tell you that I'm not going anywhere. I like what the city of Schertz is about, and I like every time. This is the 3rd council I've been to the last 3 weeks, and it's just amazing that everything that you have going on with the citizens and how you are with the community and everybody getting involved is just great to see, and that's something I'm really proud to be part of. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us. Glad to have you with us. I gave Mr. Garcia a little bit of a hard time when he first started with us, and I said, better be careful. I said, typically people, they're out of here within 4 weeks, or they stay for 20 years, and so he knows he's going to be here for a long time. All right. Next up, police. Gary, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Tonight, this evening, the police department would like to introduce our new employee. It's going to be Loretta Bilderback. She's a communications officer with our department. She started April 2017 with us. Today with her is also her son, Trenton, who's in 4th grade, and her husband, Robert. And they're sitting back here, second row from the back. Loretta likes to volunteer at her son's school, Watts Elementary. Some of her other passions include assisting with fundraising at the Schertz ISDs. She also likes to help out with her neighborhood projects that are going on in the neighborhood in which she resides, over in Dove Meadows. She enjoys playing, but she enjoys working out at the YMCA and also attending and working out at the Aquatic Center. She believes that working with the City of Schertz Police Department is a true calling for her to serve these citizens of this area of Schertz and the surrounding areas as well.
Very good. Well, welcome. Glad to have you with us.
I truly believe that I'm blessed beyond measure, coming to this time in my life to be able to fulfill this need to serve my area, the support of my family as well. And I wasn't born in Schertz, but I got here as soon as I could.
Perfect. Well, welcome. I'm very glad to have you with us. Excellent. All right. I've got a note here that says the next person that we were going to introduce has been moved to June, so we'll wait on that one. The next item I have on the agenda this evening, I have city events and announcements, and I have announcements of upcoming city events. And Mr. Waite, you must be working your way forward to have the duty this evening. All right.
They gave me the duty because the list is long. So here we go. Starting in the morning from 8 a.m. till noon out in front of the community center, we have a blood drive going on here at the city complex. Thursday, May 4th, reminder 6 p.m. that evening. We have the Schertz Sweetheart Coronation Ceremony over in the Civic Center. This weekend, a couple of things. First of all, on Saturday, May 6th, community cleanup from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's in the Heritage Historical Neighborhood. You can get a hold of Jesse Hamilton at extension 1671, 1671, if you'd like more information on that. And then that afternoon, once you get done cleaning and working real hard, you can go home, get cleaned up, or really don't even go home and get cleaned up. Just come out to the park. We're going to have the Soulful Flow Jazz Band performing out at Pickerel Park from 1 to 4 Saturday afternoon as well. Tuesday, May 9th, the Heritage Oaks Parks dedication at 5:15 p.m. That's being planned to enable council to be able to get there, dedicate the park, and be able to make it back up here for council that night at 6 p.m. Thursday, May 11th is the Northeast Partnership meeting at 11:30 over at the Olympia Hills Golf and Conference Center. And that's at 11:30 in the morning. And then that evening at 5:30 is the TML Region 7 meeting at the Live Oak Hilton Garden Inn. They're on 8101 Pat Booker Road in Live Oak. Tuesday, May 16th is the Chamber Luncheon at 11:30. And then that evening we have our third Council on the Go of the year at 6:30 p.m. at Norma Pascal Elementary in the cafeteria. It's right up here at Savannah and Schertz Parkway. And Friday, May 19th, the Park Tour North route from 1 to 5, and on Saturday, the Park Tour South route from 8 to noon. Please RSVP with the City Secretary's office so we can make sure we have the appropriate size transportation for everybody that will be attending the tours, doing the North Parks on Friday and the Southern Parks on Saturday. A few hold the dates. May 21 through the 27th is EMS week, and it begins on Sunday, May 21st with the annual EMS golf tournament at Olympia Hills Golf Course. They've done some dealing this year. For those of you that have played in the past and gotten really warm late in the afternoon, they're teeing off at 9 a.m. on that Sunday instead of 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So it'll probably be a much more pleasant round of golf. And Monday, May 22nd, the 14th Annual Hog Wild Conference put on by our city attorneys from 7:30 to 6 a.m. till 6 p.m. at the Texas State University Student Center in San Marcos. And then May 23rd, City Council meeting. May 24th is a ribbon cutting at McGarrell Orthodontics up here on FM 3009. Thursday, May 25th is the CVLGC Joint Budget Workshop. It'll be held in the Civic Center Bluebonnet Hall. It's joint between the CVLGC Board, the Schertz City Council, and the Cibolo City Council. May 29th, city offices are closed in observance of Memorial Day. And then last, but certainly not least, Friday, June 30th, the TML Legislative Wrap-Up, which is being held in Austin at the Doubletree. And you can RSVP to either Brenda or Donna in the city secretary's office. That event runs from 7:45 in the morning till 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon. And it'll be an overall wrap-up of everything that has come out of the legislative session this year.
All right, that's an awful lot. Thank you, sir. Mr. Kessel tells me he'll defer announcements and recognitions to the end because it comes up again. The next item on the agenda then is consent agenda items. Item number 1, minutes, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of April 25th, 2017. Item number 2, excuse council absences. It's excusing the absences of myself and Mr. Gutierrez from the April 25th meeting. And item number 3, Main Street Committee appointments. Action ratifying the appointment of Mayor Pro Tem Edwards, Councilmember Davis, and Councilmember Larson to the Main Street Committee. Any of these that need to be pulled and considered individually, council? If not, is there a motion to approve the items on consent?
So move.
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. Thompson. Sound like a motion from Mr. Davis. A second from Mr. Davis, rather. Any other comments or questions from council? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Aye.
Have 7 ayes and no nays. The motion carries. The next item that we have on the agenda is a roll call vote confirmation with regards to the consent agenda.
Consent agenda items 1 through 3. Motion was made by Councilmember Thompson, seconded by Councilmember Davis. Mayor Pro Tem Edwards, Councilmembers Davis, Gutierrez, Larson, Thompson, Kaiser, Crawford voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed.
All right, very good. We do have a need this evening for an executive session, so the City Council will meet in closed session under Section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code, personnel matters to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of the city manager. We'll go directly into the executive session, and we'll take care of that business as quickly as we can and come back out into regular session. All right, it is approximately 8:15. We'll come back into open session. I don't think we have any action to take based on the discussions held in closed session under item number 7. So I will move then to requests and announcements. And first, item number 4, announcements by the city manager. Mr. Kessel.
I just wanted to make 2 announcements. One, the city received notice that our Judge Hirschner, is very ill. We don't have a lot of information that we can share, but I wanted to pass that along, and we'll give you some more information. I assume that everybody's met Judge Hirschner, either professionally or as a citizen, and he's been a very good friend of the city of Schertz for many years, and so just keep him in your prayers, please. It's very serious, I'll say it that way. And then the second is next week I will actually be absent from the city council. I'm in professional development in Birmingham, Alabama. And so I'm really looking forward to being in that area, and I've not been there before, and get an opportunity to see some of the historic sites in the region as well. So good opportunity, but I apologize I'll have to miss the council. It's actually it's at Maxwell Air Force Base. Yeah, at the Air War College. Yes, sir.
Very good. Very good. Next item number 5, future agenda item request from the council. Anything that we need to put on the council on a future agenda items? Or Mr. Larson?
And staff can maybe direct me on this, but one of the things that I've seen in the news recently is this property tax battle with Lowe's and dark store appraisal. I've seen nationally that's had some success for Lowe's, and I was wondering if maybe not anytime necessarily urgently, but it is important, if we can get an estimate of if this goes through, if they have success in Texas, how is that going to impact the city of Schertz, and do we have, is it something we should be considering with a contingency plan?
Yes, we can look at that and give a report and update.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Thompson?
Yes, I'd like to kind of tag on to Scott. It'd be nice to know how that impacts SCU CISD as well.
Okay.
The one that I would like to request, several weeks ago, Mr. James updated the council as to the JLU status and what was happening in terms of projected letters and meetings to landowners and residents. I would just like to request an additional update to see how we're doing in contacting those residents, landowners, make sure that process and how that's moving along.
We can do that just briefly to council because it's a question is, we obviously wanted to talk to Randolph because one of the major issues was the density. Their scheduling was a problem with folks on vacation, so we have been in communication with them and hope to have a bit more information end of this week. And we felt like having that, knowing kind of where they stood, was key in having productive meetings with the residents. So hopefully we'll have that end of this week and can sit down with residents, start sending out notices.
Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? No? All right. Then I'll go to item number 6, announcements by the mayor and council members, and we'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Edwards.
I have nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Mr. Crawford, we'll go ahead and just go down the rows here.
Nothing.
There we go. Mr. Davis?
Nothing, sir.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Nothing, sir.
Glad to have you back with us. Mr. Larson?
Nothing.
Very good. Mr. Thompson? Dr. Kaiser?
Nothing.
All right. Last week, sorry that I missed. I was out of the state on business. Good to be back in Texas. Good to be back in Schertz. If there's nothing else from staff or from council, then we stand adjourned.